Welcome to Marvel Unmasked, your place for everything Marvel Comics. Hey guys, glad to get everybody together again. Welcome to episode 2 of our video podcast. Marvel Unmasked is a video podcast that we talk about everything Marvel Comics. Movies, TV, comics, video games, role-playing games, and even theme parks. So if you're a fan of Marvel Comics, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that bell so you get every bit of this Marvel content. Now, this podcast is designed for YouTube, but audio podcasts will be available shortly. But I would love to know what audio service you like the best. Do me a favor, shoot at the free ones first. I'm a poor boy here. Typically, this will be the spot where we put in some word for our sponsor, but we don't have any. We're doing this for fun. So it seems like a good spot to say thank you for listening or watching, and please subscribe and leave us a comment. You have no idea how much it helps us on YouTube when you leave us a comment and give us a little interaction, so it's really appreciated. We also have a contest this month. It's a copy of Secret Wars. Only softcover. Sorry, but it's one of the best comics ever, and I love it. And I did it as a contest this month because it's actually the first comic I ever truly collected. Bought it with bags, boards, and even a box. Special shout out to my 7th grade English teacher, Chester Davis, for hooking me up with that. Make sure you get in on the contest and leave that comment and subscribe below. Let's dive into what's going on in Marvel this week. Now, it's Monday afternoon, we're recording this, and the latest breaking news is that Christian Bale is in talks to join Thor, Love and Thunder. Now, whenever we hear a major actor is going to join a Marvel movie, the first question is, who's that person going to play? Now, fans for quite a while have wanted to see the one and only Beta Ray Bill join the Thor side of the MCU. But personally, I find this very unlikely. And there's so many other characters he could be. On the good side of the fence, outside of Beta Ray Bill, he could also be playing another Asgardian. We have not seen Balder the Brave in the MCU as of yet. He could also be playing one of those characters that's leading us into the future of the MCU. And to me, one of those choices could be the one and only Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer. Think about that, Christian Bale as the Silver Surfer. Most likely though, he's going to be a bad guy, and I saw a pic online from Task that I absolutely love, Dario Agger. Now if you don't know who he is, he's the CEO of Roxxon and can actually turn into a gigantic Minotaur. And he actually plays a huge role in the Mighty Thor storyline for Jane Foster. So all these things seem to line up rather nicely. Now, as much as I would like to see Christian Bale be Beta Ray Bill, I really don't see him hiding under that much makeup. I also don't see him as the kind of actor that would sign on for 5 or 6 movies in a Marvel contract. Marvel would be looking for an actor to give a 5 or 6 film commitment, and I just don't see Christian Bale doing that. But a one-off villain or a villain who only appears in a limited number of features is a much easier sell to an actor of his caliber. The other big Thor Love and Thunder news this week is Taika Waititi confirmed both when pre-production and actual filming for the project will start. Taika Waititi was at a BAFTA tea party and he actually talked to the guys over at Variety. He told them that pre-production for the anticipated sequel is scheduled to begin in April, and at that point him and some of his crew will move to Sydney, and filming is set to commence sometime in August. Now he did make a special note, and everybody should keep in mind that everything going on in Australia right now has been affected by those brush fires, so this could play into some production details for this movie. I actually expect the movie to be dedicated to the real heroes who are fighting that fire. Probably the other big news in Marvel this week was a New Mutants trailer. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a pretty cool trailer with lots of new footage. And more importantly, we got to look at some of the characters using their powers. The fact that this movie is actually getting released is somewhat of a minor miracle, considering the path that it had to take and the Disney-Fox merger that we just went through. If you remember, we were hearing that it was going to head to Disney+, and I personally thought that's where it was going to go. Or it might even hit the trash can altogether. But I guess Kevin Feige and crew liked what they saw from Josh Boone and are giving it a chance. The trailer had so much more in it, tiny tidbits of each character using their power, and some teasing of the Demon Bear. I don't actually think this is going to be set in the MCU, but who knows? We have no idea what's going on with Kevin Feige, and if Kevin Feige is setting up multiple Marvel universes, it might not matter anymore where someone is actually from. I'm kind of cautiously optimistic for this movie. The renewed optimism, Josh Boone, who knows how to direct, and really an all-star cast, should have brought us something really special, and it looks like they were headed in a new direction. So, I'm hopeful. I'm really curious what you guys thought of the trailer, and do you plan on even seeing this movie? With Disney releasing it, there almost seems to be some more anticipation to the film, where when it was over at Fox at a quote-unquote dying studio, fans seemed more than a little ambivalent to the production. We'll have to wait and see. Now, are the Defenders about to come back? There's been an unconfirmed report this week about Marvel's Defenders. Now, these aren't the classic comic book Defenders, which ironically, and we'll talk about it in a couple minutes because some of those characters may actually be returning permanently to the MCU, but we're talking about the ones that lived over on Netflix. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, The Punisher, and the rest of the crew. Now, that moratorium between productions for Daredevil is far from up, but Luke Cage and Iron Fist are actually available in the fourth quarter of this year. But now there are some unconfirmed reports that Marvel is actually working on returning these characters to the MCU. We don't have a lot of details on this, and this includes details like confirmation of who's been cast, is it going to be the same characters, is it going to be a continuation of those storylines, or a reboot. All of this is up in the air. Now, in order for this to happen for some of these characters, they would have had to come to some sort of agreement with Netflix, and this is totally possible, and could actually jumpstart the production. The streaming wars have started, and Netflix could very well be looking for a way to play nice with Disney and Disney Plus so that they get some of the content they need for their own service. It's really hard to tell, but the relationship did appear fairly contentious before. The truth of the matter is, I don't really think they need it. Marvel has so many irons in the fire right now, I think the Defenders can kind of sit on the shelf for a little bit of time before they need to come back out and play. We've got a full crop of Marvel TV shows headed our way. We're going to talk about Moon Knight in just a second, and I just don't think there's room for the characters right now. Now, with that said, I think Charlie Cox and most of the rest of the cast are near perfect for their characters. Obviously, some people would have to be recast, Finn Jones, and some stories might have to be tweaked, but I don't really see why this needs to happen right now, and Marvel has so much on their plate, once again, you have to worry about a little bit of overkill. We'll have to wait and see what happens, and hopefully everybody's careers work out just fine. One caveat here is, the longer you wait, the harder it is to retain the actors. So if Marvel's intent is to continue those stories, that to me would be the only motivating factor to actually dive right in and make these happen right now. I kind of felt like most things went awry in all the series except Daredevil, so I really don't see a reason for bringing back any of the other characters except maybe Daredevil and Punisher. We'll have to wait and see. Now, like we said, Marvel has a bunch of irons in the fire, and one of those irons in the fire is Moon Knight. It looks like to me this may actually become some sort of supernatural showpiece for Marvel Studios, because the news this week is that Dracula will be a villain in the show. Now, it's still unclear what level of a villain. Dracula has actually appeared in Marvel Comics quite a bit, and if you watch some of the recent cartoons, he was one of the main antagonists in Avengers Assemble. But right now, it's unclear whether he'll be the main villain of the show, or show up as a cameo. Either one is pretty interesting, and both lead to sort of a springboard for another Marvel character that we know is coming, Blade. Now, you couple this with other information that we already have, because we actually know that Werewolf by Night is joining Moon Knight on this series. And this leads us right to Midnight Sun. At this point, we have about half the roster. Throw in Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange, and all of a sudden, you pretty much have a full team. Vikings tease us with a lot of new characters coming to the Multiverse of Madness, and we very well could fill in some of the slots for the Midnight Suns from that movie. I personally think Ghost Rider may show up there. Marvel's recent interest in Ghost Rider and some of this other news about Midnight Suns all to me seem to point to one thing, that team-up movie. And Dracula may be the perfect villain for that. I suspect, even though the rumor is unconfirmed, that this will be a small appearance of Dracula, probably one episode in the series, allowing us to establish his existence in the Marvel Universe as well as Blade. Then eventually using him in a Loki-style role where he takes on a whole team of heroes as he's been supercharged by some other outside force. I mean, it's magic in the Marvel Universe, almost anything could happen. I've been a fan of Moon Knight for quite a while, and although I love the supernatural aspects of the character, I hope they don't get totally caught on that side of the fence for Moon Knight. There's some classic vigilante justice-style tales involving the character, and if we get too caught up in monsters and werewolves and vampires and all that kind of stuff, I worry the general public will lose some of the things that are really great about the character because they'll never get a chance to be portrayed. We'll have to wait and see on that front, but I'm really curious if you guys are actually comfortable with what they're doing with Moon Knight, and you like the idea of Dracula being the main villain. WandaVision has been coming at us with a little bit of news this week also. The first piece of news involves a change of release date. WandaVision is actually a lot closer than you think. Although it was originally announced for spring of 2021, the Marvel series will arrive on Disney Plus this year in 2020. Disney actually made this announcement in a video previewing the streaming service's 2020 slate, along with an accompanying press release letting everybody know. So, we're going to see more of the series sooner than later. This to me makes me believe that production of the series is going pretty well, and are probably moving a little bit ahead of schedule. Always a good sign. We've also got another little bit of a rumor. It's been common knowledge for a while that they're looking for some children to be in the show, 2 boys around 8 years old. And the prevailing theory is there'll be a young Wiccan and Speed, who are Scarlet Witch's and Vision's children. Earlier this week, there was an audition tape that was going around that has since been deleted and actually got some people's Twitter accounts whacked, which to me adds quite a bit of credibility to it being the real deal. And what it showed was a young actor in that age range talking about Halloween, the rumored setting for the Disney Plus series, and mentions his uncle. That uncle very well could be the MCU's one and only Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. Now, if you remember, Quicksilver is Scarlet Witch's brother and actually died in Age of Ultron. We haven't heard hide nor hair of him since then, and Aaron Taylor Johnson has previously even said there were no plans for him to return to the MCU. However, he did make those statements before WandaVision was coming to fruition, so that may have changed since that statement was made. And Marvel's a little bit secretive. These actors seem pretty scared of the Marvel snipers, and he very well just might have lied. I mean, I don't really know why that's so hard for people to figure out at this point. They're trying to make this a secret, make it fun, make it exciting, so they're not going to tell you the truth about what's going to happen in the upcoming events. They're going to let you find out for yourself. I mean, they're selling this. Come on, people. The last big Marvel movie news story this week is about Hulk and Namor. And if you remember earlier this week, we did a bit of a video about that and talked about how Hulk and Namor very well may be returning to the MCU permanently. Now, for those that don't really understand what's going on, Marvel and Universal had a distribution rights agreement in place. What this means is Marvel actually can make solo Hulk movies, but Universal has the right of first refusal on distribution. In layman's terms, it means Universal gets the chance to make a good chunk of the profits off the distribution of the movie before Disney due to this contractual obligation. This is why we haven't seen any Hulk solo movies in such a long period of time. Now, what the report says is that Marvel now has actually gained full distribution rights over the Hulk and Namor. And I actually think there's a good reason why this happened now. Now, obviously, money plays many roles in these discussions, but ultimately, Disney Plus, I believe, is why Namor and the Hulk have now returned to Marvel. You see, for the longest time, Marvel couldn't make those solo movies, and they couldn't make movies centered around those characters with those guys as the primary characters. They could only use them as a secondary character in somebody else's movie. By adding Disney Plus and allowing them to do things like, the She-Hulk solo series, which doesn't violate that agreement that they have with Universal, it's not a feature film, Marvel has effectively sidestepped that restriction. With Disney Plus, they can do almost anything they want with any Hulk character, and then just include them in larger ensemble films on the big screen, effectively sidestepping Universal completely. At this point, and although I don't have any privy information, I highly suspect Disney just simply offered Universal some sort of deal and let them decide whether they wanted to take some money or get no money. Now, these corporate dealings always go on behind closed doors, so I don't really expect a lot of confirmation from anybody until something's 100% official. But I do think Marvel has been on a quest for a really long time to get every single one of their characters back. And once they have the Hulk and Namor, that leaves Spider-Man at Sony as the last one standing. Should Sony have any financial problems and have to sell off Columbia Studios, Spider-Man would then return to the House of Mouse and Marvel would have all their heroes home, with some minor technicalities. Anyway, let's move on to a little bit of comics. Now, we're not going to do full-fledged comic reviews here, but I wanted to talk just for a minute about the new Donny Cates Thor book. It's going to be some spoilers here, so be ready. This is a great book. I really flew through it. I actually read it twice. It is so good. The art is spectacular, and we're finally getting something really new and exciting for Thor. Now again, we're going to talk some spoilers here. So if you noticed that spoiler message popped up at the beginning of the story, if you don't want any, fast forward to the end of that. In this story, Thor becomes the Herald of Thunder. That's right, he becomes a Herald of Galactus. I always get super concerned whenever I see drastic costume changes that move fairly far away from the original look of the character. And although this is clearly Thor, this costume change makes total sense. And I cannot wait for more. Now, I'm not going to do a full review here, and we're going to do another video where we talk a little bit about Donnie's new Thor after a couple of issues, so hopefully you'll tune in then. In any case, what a great issue, and I highly recommend you guys checking it out, and I can't wait for issue number 2. Now, each week on the podcast, we want to talk a little bit about the rumor mill, because so much seems to come out of it, it's so hard to put our fingers on, know what's real or what's not, but it's almost always worth talking about. So I'll try to grab 1 or 2 stories each week that I cannot get any independent validation from, and is not generally being carried, but we find pretty interesting. This week we've got 2, a Shang-Chi rumor from Reddit and a Doctor Strange 2 rumor from Mikey Sutton. Now, the Shang-Chi rumor actually cites back to 4chan, which makes it even worse than Reddit. But most of the details seem pretty interesting, a lot of it works, and I thought you guys might like it. So here's the post. I work near Australia, where filming is about to begin for Shang-Chi. Probably means New Zealand. Here is what I know. Shang-Chi enters a tournament led by the Mandarin. The winner of the tournament wins the 10 rings. Now, he includes a whole laundry list of Asian actors as potentially cast in supporting roles. He also points to Sam Rockwell, who played Justin Hammer in Iron Man, and Ben Kingsley, who played Trevor Slattery, aka the fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3, and says they both have small appearances in the movie. He also says that Donnie Yen did sign for a cameo in the film, and he's claiming that he's playing the Ancestor. and that several obscure Marvel characters will be contestants at this tournament. Now, I gotta say, most of this actually matches a leak from a couple of weeks ago. One of the things you really gotta be careful of is a lot of these people that claim to know something basically puzzle together pieces of several leaks and known information and then just repackage it into something new and claim it's a leak. I'm not a real big fan of Reddit, but most of this kind of reads like it could be true, but with no supporting information, I'm pretty solidly dismissing it. With that said, one of the things we want to look at with all of these leaks is commonalities and things that keep cropping up over and over again. If you pay close attention, it's easy to notice that a lot of leaks turn out to be true. Just not 100% true or just portionally true. And I highly suspect that this tournament rumor that we keep hearing over and over again will hold true in Shang-Chi. I think we've heard from more than one place that this movie is going to be very similar to the classic 1980s martial arts movie Bloodsport, which was revolving around a tournament known as the Kumite. We'll have to wait and see. The other rumor of the week comes from Mikey Sutton, and it's been carried by several outlets that generally carry his material like Lords of the Long Box or Mike Jarbo. And the basics of the rumor are that the Illuminati will make an appearance in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This would include introducing both Professor X and Reed Richards during this movie, as well as potentially Namor. Now, overall, the leak is rather short on details, and at the very end of the whole leak, they do end the whole thing with saying that this was from pre-production, and it very well could have changed since then, effectively giving a backdoor to the whole thing for it to be wrong. Personally, I really want this to be true, and Mikey has had quite a few that he's nailed 100%, but this seems like a massive leap in one movie. I think it's highly possible several pieces of the Illuminati could be introduced in this movie, but I doubt we actually see that group form. Kevin Feige has mentioned recently that we were going to get some cameos and appearances in this movie that nobody was predicting. So this could be that area that nobody was predicting because there wasn't a lot of talk of the Illuminati before this happened. So Mikey could be onto something, so I'm going to put it on the shelf. I don't have enough information, but like I said, something that's hit some in the past, and I'm not a scooper, so I have no idea about where these sources come from. I just find it fairly entertaining and something fun to talk about. But man, would it be awfully ambitious in one movie. Well, that's all we have for this week of Marvel Unmasked. If you want to reach out to us on Twitter, you can find us at Comic Book Nostalgia on Twitter or at Comic Book Nostalgia on YouTube. Hit us with some comments and some questions. We'd love to include some of those in the podcast, and we're always looking for guests. So if you think you'd make a great guest, hit us up. Anyway, till next time, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and remember about that bell. Don't ring the bell, won't get the updates. Excelsior.